Welcome to the US EMV Value-Added Reseller Qualification Program's educational series, brought to you by the Payment Security Task Force and the EMV Migration Forum. Hi, I'm Aidan Corcoran from Acquire Systems, and I'll be providing a brief on EMV development preparation. The first question today: how do I select an approved device? The choice of an approved device is based on a number of key criteria, which will influence your final choice. These criteria include your retail sector and your existing card acceptance environment. What payment networks do you accept now? How do you implement both credit and debit card acceptance? Are you a small business merchant with only 2 or 3 cash points in a store? Do you own your own equipment right now? Or do you rent it? Are you a restaurant and need to include gratuities? Do you have self-checkout lanes? These are the kind of questions you need to be asking yourself as part of your discovery process. Within each retail sector and operating environment, there are core requirements for EMV card acceptance, which augment the existing magnetic stripe card acceptance requirements. Full details on these requirements can be obtained from your acquirer or its processor, as well as the payment networks. In particular, I recommend the Visa Transaction Acquirer Device Guidelines (TADG) document, the MasterCard M-Chip Requirements document, the Discover DPass terminal requirements, and the American Express AEIPS terminal specification. In addition, your acquirer will have their own EMV implementation guide, which I suggest should be required reading. For debit documentation, refer to the debit webcast. You should also be in discussion with your equipment suppliers, terminal vendors and the like, to review their available solutions for EMV card acceptance. Considerations should be to standardize your solutions, which can reduce testing requirements. An example is terminals that share the same kernel. When using terminals within the same terminal family, meaning the same kernel, this can reduce testing requirements. The EMV kernel provides a set of functionality necessary for the processing logic and data required to perform an EMV contact or contactless transaction. The kernel talks with the terminal payments application to perform the required chip data exchanges with the card. For more details, refer to the Kernel Management Guidelines webcast.
It's important to know what the minimum technical requirements are for your retail sector and for the payment networks and cards you are planning to accept. The payment network members of the EMV Migration Forum came together to produce a document outlining their minimum requirements for chip deployment. It is available on the EMV Migration Forum website.
With the core technical and business requirements established for a device, there are a few things to consider. Firstly are the industry approvals for the hardware and software. These include EMV Co Approvals, PCI PED, PADSS, and potentially requirements for your own retail sector. Confirming some of these approvals can be completed by checking the relevant website, EMV Co and PCI. It may be a requirement for your new device to accept cardholder PIN entry, and this may also influence the physical layout of your solution. Do you have a cardholder facing unit, or can it all be done on the cash register? Do you need to reconfigure your cash point? Integration with your cash register system may also be needed. If required, this can be done at various levels, depending on the level of sophistication of the EMV device. Integration levels are a topic to discuss with your solution provider. If you accept other forms of payment, like EBT or gift cards, the changes for EMV may also have implications in this area. Legacy technology acceptance, like magstripe and manual entry, will still be with us for quite a few more years, so these also need to be included in the consideration of new or updated card acceptance systems. If you already accept contactless payments, you should review existing contactless acceptance, and if upgrading, include EMV contactless as well, which has its basis in the EMV contact chip technology. Tokenization is a process of substituting a sensitive data element like the PAN with a non-sensitive equivalent value, referred to as a token. It devalues sensitive data. A multi-layered approach should be considered to security that includes compliance with PCI standards, chip technology, tokenization, and encryption, as there is no one solution alone sufficient to combat payment card fraud. A second question today: what are the core business changes? There will be a lot of change in the process, and you'll need to deliver that change into the field in a timely manner to meet your own internal business requirements. Over the next 6 months or so, you'll be involved in a project to deliver the new technology into your merchant environment. This project will have a longer-term impact on a number of areas, and should include multiple stakeholders within your organization. Many of the tasks will have cross-functional dependencies. Value-added resellers should be working with their acquirer and/or acquirer processor for their migration requirements. Your staff who deal directly with customers during payment will need specific training on any changes to the payment process. Staff may need to help cardholders with the transaction flow and be able to deal with any issues that might arise. As more and more EMV cards are in circulation, you may need to update the software or configuration on your card acceptance systems. EMV is not just a once-off change for 2015. It will require updates and maintenance over the coming years, and it will form the basis for delivery of other payment technologies such as Apple Pay. A terminal management system will allow you to make these updates without on-site visits or the need to exchange equipment. The next question: what are the implication options for contact and contactless payments, and what considerations and what configurations? If you already accept contactless payments or are considering contactless payments to be suitable for your business, then this should be included in your EMV project. There are many considerations for contactless acceptance that overlap with the requirements for EMV contact acceptance. In addition, contactless acceptance typically means that the cardholder retains possession of their card at all times, and the transaction can usually be completed without a receipt. Typically, these are for low transaction amounts. Signage, device messages and prompts should make it clear to cardholders how they can initiate payment regardless of the technology, whether that be EMV, contactless or magstripe. You'll need to determine if you want to deploy dual interface terminals or contact only. There are also contactless testing requirements as part of this process. If using an integrated POS system, what do I need to consider to integrate my terminal with the POS system? Firstly, a simple question: do you need to integrate at all? Or at least in the short term? If appropriate, you can look at interim solutions of a standalone POS device which can handle EMV transactions while allowing you to look at other options. If your card acceptance at the moment is very tightly tied to a reader on the side of your cash register, then moving to EMV might be more challenging than you expect. Adding an EMV card reader, typically a PIN pad, will mean adding a new device to your countertop and you need to connect it up, both power and connectivity, either to the cash register or to a new network telecoms connection. If I have development questions, who can guide me on the implementation roadmap? EMV is not a new technology, and there are many sources for information, both business and technical. On this list on the slide, I've included sources who you will likely already have a relationship with, acquirers and technology suppliers. In addition, there are a number of industry groups like the EMF which can support you with your project. Please don't forget to check out the EMF website for an excellent knowledge base. It is also possible to directly seek help and support from a qualified PST service provider, as listed on the PCI WebCo website, or from other service providers and industry consultants. What is the expected timing for an implementation? This kind of question is very much dependent on your existing infrastructure and the requirements that come from your discovery and requirements gathering. On one end, you can be just adding a simple, already certified standalone device which directly connects to an acquirer. The other end of this scale is a custom software update with new equipment for your stores, which requires significant testing, a certification cycle, and a major deployment. What happens if the device selected is not currently approved by EMV Co? What steps need to be taken then? Devices should have EMV Co Level 1 and Level 2 approvals. This can delay your implementation if the device is not yet approved by EMV Co. It is a key critical milestone. You should be working closely with the device manufacturer. Any specifics that come from the discovery and requirements gathering phase of your project may impact the specific EMV features certified by EMV Co. If you start with a brand new device, you may need up to 3 months for EMV Co approvals, while adapting an existing approved device can be completed in a matter of weeks. It might be easier to add EMV support to your existing systems with a semi-integrated or even a standalone device, which has already been approved and certified by the payment networks and acquirer. What are the best practices to consider? Your EMV project will have a number of different phases, and within each phase there are specific tips and best practices to consider. Some of these areas would be best to discuss with your acquirer or with a subject matter expert. Without getting into too much detail, I'd suggest that you ensure that you have the most current documentation from your acquirer and the relevant documentation from the payment networks that you're processing. This includes test plans and test cases, to ensure that your system can be easily confirmed to be fit for purpose. In the early stages of your project, you should take careful consideration of the system requirements and that the chosen device has the correct properties to meet these requirements. I would also add that interfacing between the device and your cache points, the API, should be considered in the face of its complexity and its time to market. You should give the project enough time to move between stages, and if possible, ensure that deliverables are well tested as they move from one stage to another. It is good to remember that the Acquirer and Payment Network certification, ADVT, MTIP, APES, end-to-end, they are not a QA cycle, but a specific confirmation that the minimum criteria have been met. It is the responsibility of the merchant and system supplier to ensure that sufficient testing has been completed on the final solution. Some of the more common failures, both in certification and in production, are related to poor device configuration or poor synchronization of data between the EMV Level 2 kernel and the merchant component generating the acquirer message. You can refer to the Kernel Management Guidelines webcast for more details. Having a remote management capability across the merchant device estate makes it easy to update configurations or roll out new software packages. Finally, magstripe cards as well as contactless technologies will also be part of the acceptance ecosystem and need to be considered as part of the overall project delivery. What are common misconceptions or incorrect implementations that have led to interoperability issues? With some of the complexity that surrounds EMV, there can be the occasional misconception. EMV Level 2 certification is a certification for a single component of a whole solution. Many card acceptance solutions may use the same EMV kernel, which may be considered within a terminal family only requiring one certification. Consult with your terminal vendor to verify if your solution is within a terminal family. While the underlying EMV specifications used by the payment networks are the same, there are many key implementation differences between them. Further, individual issuers or acquirers may make technology or configuration choices for their business that others may not. EMV card acceptance solutions will require regular maintenance updates, like the apps on your smartphone. There may be changes required to the configuration or software updates to address acceptance issues. Depending on the architecture of your card acceptance solution, changes to the solution may require to be recertified. Your acquirer and equipment supplier can help to identify significant changes to your systems that will mean they require recertification. However, as long as there are no interoperability issues, deployed devices can remain in market. You can refer to the Kernel Management Guidelines webcast for more details. Deploying an EMV card acceptance system has its own complexities, and these need to be taken account of. There are many configuration items that can affect the cardholder experience, and your acquirer and system supplier can help you with these. You can also look for help from a PST qualified service provider or other industry sources for help. Will my clients need to deploy PIN pads? Does US debit always require a PIN or a signature? The earlier suggestion that a detailed review of your business and its card acceptance requirements is important and bears repeating. There are minimum EMV device configurations that will allow both credit and debit card acceptance. Clearly, some card processing sectors, for example unattended fuel, will have a higher card and cardholder validation requirement. The EMF US Debit Guide is a good place to start for the card processing requirements, but your acquirer will be able to confirm if a minimum configuration is suitable for your business. In closing, consult with your acquirer and payment network for more details on their EMV implementation requirements. Thank you.